Hi, my name is Harri Horsley. I am a costume designer and I'm an educator. This is Sisters in the Round. This Sisters in the Round is dedicated to fostering an inclusive and empowering community within the theater industry, specifically for intergenerational Black women. Today, I'm here in the round with Fullerton. Oh no, sorry, Ari Fulton, a costume designer for stage and film. Now, Ari, hi. How are you feeling today?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Like we said before, we were discussing before this even started that I was like enjoying the. I know it's a hot day today, but I've been enjoying really the New York streets, and the fact that it's really bustling. Because which neighborhood do you live in New York?
So I am in Crown Heights, Brooklyn.
Okay, you're in Crown. You're in Crown Heights. I did not know you're
Yeah,
in Crown Heights. Okay, I was
yeah,
in your
and you're
neighborhood.
in Bed-Stuy, right?
I'm in Bed-Stuy. Yeah, we're neighbors
Yes,
for the most
yes,
part.
yes.
We're neighbors, yeah. And actually, I do want to start from your beginnings because you are originally from Chicago, and I am too.
Yes.
I know you lived in multiple places, but I do want to start off with how did you start in costume design? Like how, like, if anything, tell me about your childhood and really how that played into even being costume designer, and how did you even find this field?
Yeah, so I grew up in Chicago during the 90s, which makes me a millennial. And so I think I'm about a decade older than you.
Yeah.
Um, So, I mean, Chicago during the 90s was a very exciting time. It was also a time when we were coming out of like the whole drug epidemic. So there was just like a lot of buzz.
Yeah.
And then you had like the Bulls and like Oprah and, the Clintons. So it definitely had this energy to the city that things were like growing. And especially if you're black in the city, it just felt
Mhm.
like something was bubbling.
Yeah.
So I kind of found my way into the business, or I became inspired to go into the business through my family members.
Mhm.
So my mom, this was the height of the 90s, and the Bulls was like it, right?
Six
Um,
rings.
Six freaking rings.
Six
And
rings.
I saw Michael Jordan play during that time period many a times because he owned a restaurant and my mom worked at the restaurant.
The one
So
downtown on Michigan
yes,
Avenue? Okay.
yes. The animal cruelty shelter. You know
Yeah.
that one, right?
Yeah, I do.
That place, it was popping during the 90s.
Yeah.
Like, it just had an energy and a mystique to it. And, like, there was a lot of celebrity around. So, like, I remember I would walk, because my grammar school was pretty close. So
Mhm.
I would walk to my mom's job to meet her after school. And sometimes when I would enter the restaurant, there was three floors. The bottom floor was a sports bar, and then the top floor was like a high end like steak restaurant for dinner
Yeah.
and like lunch and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So anyhow, my mom worked in the like high end part, and so I would sometimes come go there after school, and then there would be like Madonna there, or like Shaka Khan, or
Yeah.
Janet or Michael Jackson would be there, and so just like peeking out through like the behind the stages to see like these larger than life figures.
Mhm.
Um, that was sort of like very instrumental because it's like seeing how people put on artifice and like create a
Yeah.
mystique around them. That to me was like so exciting. And then like all of the drama that happens with the back kitchen staff. Like they were all just characters. Like one
Yeah.
guy did drag, and so he would talk about his experiences doing that, or he'll be like, "Come here, baby. What do you think about this wig? Or what do you think about this?" So it was all of these different characters. So I think that was one way into the industry, but also my grandmother was like a huge cinephile. So she loved
Mm,
old movies, and she had like a
mm.
photographic memory where she could be like tell you the year was made, the cinematographer, the director, what she was wearing, who she went on a date to see, like everything. And so my love of like these great films came from her, and just to see like the glamour of old Hollywood
Yeah.
mixed with the story, that's the thing where I was like, that's why I want to go into this business.
Mm. So when did you, because did you make the decision to go to school for it in high school, or did you like, because I actually was in a whole different major for me. Like I was in a
Yeah,
whole different major, in a whole different field. Like I originally wanted to do fashion design, and then I
yeah.
switched to fashion design later. So, and I actually where journalism is in there. I wanted to do journalism too. So, how did you pick your university, and also where did you go for your undergrad, and how did you make the decision as a high school student going into college for your undergrad?
So um, I envy people who just like bounced around to different majors and
Yeah.
different topics. I kind of knew early on that this is what I wanted to do. I
Mhm.
went to a performing arts high school. It's called
Right.
the Chicago Academy for the Arts.
Right.
I came in as a theater major. I quickly realized I did not want to be an actor. So I had a guidance counselor who was a set designer at some point in her life. She went to school for set design. And
Okay.
so she told me about costumes, and it was like literally a light bulb went off in my head. I was like,
Mhm.
wait a minute, wait a minute. You could do clothes, you can tell stories, you can craft with your hands, you get to learn about a bunch of different things. And then also there's the literature element where you're dissecting story and you're thinking about theme and you're adding images to the theme. So literally, once I realized that was an actual profession and career, I
Yeah.
knew that that's what I wanted to do. So
Mm.
after the Chicago Academy for the Arts, I went to DePaul, which is a conservatory in Chicago.
A theater school.
Yeah, the theater school at
Theater
DePaul.
school.
And again,
Wildcats. Wildcats. Go Wildcats. The Wildcats.
is that our? No, it's the Blue Demons,
Blue Demons. Go
which
Blue
is
Demons.
funny because it's a
My
Catholic
sister
school.
went to DePaul. It's
Huh?
crazy. My sister went to DePaul.
Oh yeah, did she
Yeah.
like it?
She did. She loves DePaul to this day. She went there for
Yeah.
grad school at Kellogg.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I did not really, because I was from Chicago, I
Yeah.
didn't hang out with people from the school as much as I should have because I already had like my crew. So
Yeah.
we would be like out dancing and just like living our lives. But it was definitely a good experience to be that close to home.
Hmm.
And then to experience the city as an adult,
Hmm.
which is way different to have like the freedom and have your own place and have an ID to go out.
Did
Yes.
you? Because I actually do want to ask you this question about not staying in Chicago to be a costume designer. Because I know that you ended up going to grad school at NYU, correct?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. So what was that transition? Did you work first, or did you go into grad school right after that? Because I went to grad school. I knew what I wanted to do. I went to grad
You
school
go
right after.
after. Oh, really? You didn't
I
take a gap year or anything?
No, because I just like I'm the type of person that when I set my mind up to something, it's gonna happen. Like I don't know how it's gonna
I
happen.
love
I think
that.
it's because I'm a Pisces and I'm a little bit delulu. I will make my delulu trululu. So I just feel
Awesome.
like whenever something is set on my mind, I know it's going to happen. Like I didn't want to sit here and um basically like I feel like I also like was I was younger and I just felt that I had to grow up a lot quicker. And Chicago is the type of city where you grow up a lot quicker. So I was like, I'm not here to waste time. I remember no shade to any of my colleagues, but they were like, I just came to grad school because I thought it would be fun, or I don't really know what I'm doing here. I was like, no. I know exactly what I'm here for. I was in Trio Upper Bound. I knew for a black woman or a black person especially that us getting into doors, and I looked at everyone. Like I was in Trey Upper Mound, where they prepared you to go into grad school. And this is like Oprah Winfrey, Viola Davis. A lot of people were alumni of Trio, so they wanted to get retention rates up, but also acceptance rates up for people who were first generation or who were low income or first generation college students. So when I was in school for it, I was like, I know that I want to be a costume designer, but I also looked up all the costume designers that I admired. I looked up Paul Tazwell. I looked up Clint Ramos. I looked up a lot of people who were people of color in costume design, specifically people of color. And I saw that everyone had a graduate degree. I feel like it's different for us because if you are a person of color, especially a black person, you can't just come up in there mediocre. I think the only exception is Ruth Carter to a certain degree. Ruth Carter went to Hampton, and really Spike Lee gave her a chance. Uh, she already had a lot of experience before that. She already did like Santa Fe Opera. She was already doing the L.A. Opera, I think the ballet when he called her. And this is for Do the Right Thing. So I was a younger student that was very methodical. So I was like, no, no, no. I know that I don't want my tuition to be paid for. I know that I want a fellowship. This should all be paid. Like I was very much like, and I have to thank the people who were my shepherds in high school because if I didn't know, I wouldn't have had ACT prep. I wouldn't have had, first generation or like orientations on going to college or going HBCU tours or going to college tours or talking about student loans, subsidized and unsubsidized. All those things were talked about with me. So I think that's why I wanted to ask you that question. A long one answer, but I wanted to ask you that question with did you work first? Did you stay in Chicago or did you, live in another city and then you eventually moved to New York? And why NYU?
So yes, to all of those. Where do I start first to answer the question? So a couple of things. I graduated in 2009, which was the start of the financial crisis,
Yes.
right? The recession. So graduating into that market was very eye-opening, and
Mhm.
I quickly realized like I wanted to wait out the pandemic because no matter what your major was, I found that my friends who weren't even in theater, they were having trouble finding jobs. So a large reason why I went to grad school was to wait out the recession, but also much like what you said, just looking around at the landscape of the people that I admire, they all had this graduate level of education. And so I've always been a person who wanted to do art with a capital A,
Yeah.
like very big budget projects. So I was looking around at people that I admire, many of the people that you just named, and I realized that they all went to grad school.
Right.
So I did make that decision, but before I went to grad school, I did take like a year and a half, and I did travel. So I lived in San Francisco, where I was living in a co-op with a bunch of hippies. Um, and then I was also working with the African American Shakespeare Company out there.
Mhm.
And then I worked at a production house that did more commercial costumes for like big scale events like the Super Bowl and like talk shows and different things like that.
Mhm.
So I did that. And then I also came back to Chicago and was an intern at the Goodman for like a
Mhm.
season, to really solidify, is this what I want to do? And while I was in Chicago, I had a bunch of odd jobs. I was a tailor, I was a dog walker. I was really trying to figure it out. But I always knew where I wanted to be. And I always knew I wanted to be in New York. And I definitely thought that I was going to need a graduate degree, just to get that extra education. Um, Number one, and number two, to get the education of New York.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So what led you to NYU? Or were you just kind of like, I'm picking New York, I'm going to figure it out. I don't know if I'm going to go to Brooklyn College or if I'm going to go to,
No,
NYU. I'm just going to. So how
I
did you get?
I wasn't brave enough to move to the city without a plan. I knew
Okay.
that if I didn't get into, I had three schools. I had NYU,
Hmm.
Yale, and Carnegie Mellon.
Okay.
And I said if I didn't get into either one of those schools, I was going to do a career change. Um, so I was very much like what you said, methodical about that.
Yeah.
NYU was my number one pick just because, in comparison to the other institutions during the time that I was looking, it felt like NYU was producing the most unique, authentic artists. So they weren't trying to do like a cookie cutter version of a
Right.
designer where they all have the same drawing style, they all have the same point of view, all of the projects look the same. They were really trying to foster your individual creativity and your individual style. So that's why I chose NYU. And then when you look at the professors, they're you look at the professors and you look at the alumni, and they're doing art with a capital A. Then really, when I just sat in on Susan Hilferty's class, I was like, oh, her brain approaches design like how I approach design. So that was a huge reason. And then also it's New York. Like if you're going to do anything in entertainment, I feel like you have to go where the action is, where people are continuously creating, and they're being challenged on a national and sort of like an international stage.
Right.
So that was my big reason for choosing NYU.
I actually do want to ask you this about advice because you did move, even if it was like 2011 when you started 2012, like that was still like a very like turbulent time for our economy and our government. What advice would you give to, and we're still kind of in it now, like, with New York and having a little bit of a housing crisis and us trying to figure out theater currently, what would you give advice to um, younger people moving to New York? Because I moved to New York in my later 20s, and I'm glad that I did. I'm glad I moved to New York in my later 20s, where I have a little bit of more of a foundation and just a little bit more of a footing, like mentally. But what would you give the advice to for younger like artists moving to this city and trying to figure out as a costume designer or as an interdisciplinary artist?
I think that I would give them different advice now than I would give myself in 2011. Like the
Mm,
world was so different in 2011. It was very much the apprentice model. I'm not
yeah,
talking about a TV show. I mean, just like in fine art where you learn
yeah,
under a master and the master gives you an opportunity to move up. I
yeah,
think all of that is kind of out the window. And
yeah,
because of social media, artists are now able to just put their stuff out there.
yeah,
It's less of a linear path, which I think is so exciting for young people. I say that you have to make your own art and you have to keep making things. Whether it's on the stage, in a studio, in your bedroom, you have to just keep your hands tactile and forever making them. And then to also not be afraid of being seen or heard. Like, I think
yeah,
a lot of times, if you go through the conventional educational system, you're sort of waiting for permission to show your art and to be
yeah.
seen. And I think this new chapter is you just have to put it out there and make people see you.
Mm,
So, in terms of moving to New York, I think you need to figure out how to make it make sense on paper. Just to bring it back, you have to figure out how to make it make sense on paper, which is what I did. I did come to New York. I think maybe 6 months or 6 months before I actually moved here permanently, and I did an internship. And I just
mm,
got my feet wet. I figured I had some Caribbean family up in Washington Heights. And they were distant family too by marriage. So I was like, "Can I come sleep on your couch?" I know you don't really know.
sure.
Can I come sleep on your couch? And then I had some other friends in Brooklyn from San Fran, and I was like, "Can I come sleep on your couch?"
Yeah,
And so I think you need to figure out wherever you end up in the business, where it's New York, LA, Chicago, Atlanta, wherever, figure out where your social base is and see how you can utilize your social base. Like,
mhm,
can I do I have friends in this particular city? can I, maybe throw them a couple $100 or whatever, or make them dinner to like sleep on their couch for a couple weeks while I figure it out. And then also, research the designers that you want to work with or that inspire you, and just start contacting them to be like, hey, I love your work. Can I intern with you? Can I just be up under you? So that's my big advice. And then, of course, have some savings and kind of, I like to, when I approach life, I like to etch a plan, but I don't want to stick solely to the plan. So that's my advice.
Tell me about, and thank you for that. Tell me about coming into New York and starting at NYU. Because like you said earlier that when you were at DePaul, you was like, okay, listen, like I'm from this city. I be hanging out with my people. It is what it is. And I kind of did this a little bit in grad school. Like my grad school was kind of a little bit different. Whereas I picked the University of Texas. Hook 'em, go Longhorns. But I'm from Texas. I spent 15 years down there. My family is from Texas. So that program, it had integrated media, it had scenic design. It was just like you were in a bucket. And I was in a city, but it was an artsy city, but I wasn't in like a Chicago setting, right? So whenever I was like on the weekends, I would be like, I'm going to Dallas because my family's in Dallas. So I would drive that 2 hours and I would just go to Dallas every single weekend. How was that exactly for you coming into NYC and going to NYU and trying to foster or make and a lot of people don't think about this whenever they're choosing an institution, but what was it like trying to talk to Susan as your advisor or trying to basically be thrown into the NYU system? Because all these institutions kind of have these systems. So how was that like? What was that like for you?
Okay, so I've been in art school for a very long time. So I've been in art school since I was like 13, 14.
Yeah.
So I was used to Western styles of looking at art, and I could take critique and all of those things that they put you through. Like they put you through a meat grinder.
Yeah.
I will say that when you show up as a Black person or as a minority person, it's hard for them to digest you. They don't know what to do with you. I mean, maybe it's changed now because we've gone through the whole 2020 social unrest, but even still, it's very hard for them to see you as a full, authentic person. I personally come from a school of thought where it's less important to get people to see you, and it's more important for you to just show up and be authentic to the art that you're making. So for me, it was sort of like a double-edged sword. Like I had students, my peers, whom of which I've gone to, they went to DePaul with me for undergrad. We were in the same class at DePaul. And so we all of a sudden wound up at NYU in the same graduate class. And they straight up looked at me and said, hey, you don't deserve to be here. The only reason why you're here is because of a quota or because you're Black. And I'm looking at them and I'm like, we went through the same schooling. What are you talking about? And so I just had to get into the habit of drowning them out and being laser focused and not getting caught up in the noise. Not like I wasn't a person to argue because I'm like, okay, well, we're gonna see how this turns out. If you think you're better, then be better. But it seems like you're not.
It's very interesting. And for me, and I don't know if this person you're talking about is a white woman, but she was.
Wait,
okay. So, okay. I will say this, that it's very interesting because every single time I've worked in, and it's not all white women, but it's some white women. Of course, not all white women. We're not generalizing. it's very interesting whenever I'm working in this grad school. I remember I was in grad school and um I was told by someone who worked in the faculty, no shade, but it is what it is, uh, that they didn't understand why I was there. You know, I was recruited by someone else. And she left, she went to another institution. So she chose me. I was coming into a new setting. And I remember my first meetings and they were like, well, I don't know why you were chosen. And you know what I said? I said, well, I was chosen before you were chosen. You just ended up being here. I was like, it's that Chicago mouth. I was like, well,
I know we got the worst mouth.
I had the worst mouth. I was just like, I was here.
It's like vulgar, but like we'll come back with the comebacks.
Yeah, we will. It's just I don't know what it is, but it's just it's like you're stepping into a hornet's nest. It's like y'all really think y'all are safe. If you were to say something to me in a production meeting or whatever the case may be, like y'all have to come correct. And I think when it comes to theater, or coming into the arts in general, these grad schools, like it's just very interesting because I think a lot of people don't know going into these grad schools, and it's become a lot better. Like, you were at a time, it was probably totally different for you. And I can't imagine like the fire that you had to walk through in order to be seen as equitable as other people, if not better than some people. I'm sorry.
I would say again, you should not be walking into the room coming from a place of lack of saying like, hey, I want this person to see me, because that feeds into that conventional narrative of you trying to get their approval. And really, you need to show up with the fire like, what's wrong with you? You're being weird. You know? Like, I don't know what this is, but I'm here. So, like I told that girl, I was like, you have a problem, why don't you go seek Susan Hilferty and tell her your complaint? Like, I don't know what you want me to do about it. I'm here. I'm not leaving.
Yeah.
So what do you want? I mean, even when I was interviewing at Yale, I'm not going to tell you the professor, but they told me that I wouldn't fit in there. They flat out was like, your work is stunning, but we're looking at you and saying, I'm looking at you physically and I don't think you'll fit in here. And I was like, if my work is good, what about my personality is not going to fit here?
Yeah. I was going to ask this later on, and I feel like sometimes as Black designers, or sometimes I'm a designer that happens to be Black usually, and I feel like sometimes we're pigeonholed into doing certain things, and I don't mind it, but it's just, I feel like we're taught to do everything, and we can do everything. Especially Black women who are designers. I feel like we can do everything, right? And sometimes I just feel that some people are like, you can only do this one specific thing. Yeah. And it's I don't know why. It's very weird to me. Like, it's very weird to me because we have the same training as our colleagues, but we're not called as often.
Well, I think it's because of fear. Yeah. It's like as a Black person, we grow up around everyone, most of us. Yeah. We have to interact. Like, I look at my friend group now and just going back throughout my entire childhood, I had Mexican friends, I had Jewish friends, I had Hispanic friends, I had African friends, I had people with different gender expressions. Like, our world was so diverse. So when you grow up in that world, diversity is not like you're flexing a muscle, it's you're living your life. Yes. And for many white Americans, they grow up in a bubble. Mm-hmm. So when they have to step out of their bubble, not all of them, but many of them, it brings out their insecurities, their inequities, where they're looking at themselves and they're measuring themselves, and they, when they were growing up, they were like the big fish in a small pond, and now they're in a bigger pond, and now they are a small fish in a big pond.
Yes.
So I just look at them, a lot of those people, not out of like, I'm trying to prove myself, but like, oh, wow, you're really deficient in developing as a human. Like, you should not be worried about me. You should be worried about how you're showing up.
Mm-hmm.
And I should not intimidate you because I'm a human being. I'm just trying to make some art. And if the way I view the world is upsetting you, you're going to have to deal with that. And I don't have time because I'm here on my own experience as a human living my life. I don't have time to deal with your whatever this is. But at the same time, you're not going to mess with me. So I'm gonna let you. And I've seen people have complete meltdowns, and I'm just looking at them like, "What is wrong with you?
What's going on with this crash out?"
Like, crashing out, and then they're not about why they're crashing out. Is because the script of who they are as a white person is not measuring up to what's happening in reality, and that's why they're having to crash out. And I can't help you come to terms with reality.
I remember grad school, and I was the person that was definitely like not a crash out artist. Like I was always calm. And the thing is, I'll always say I was probably unbothered. Like I was unbothered, and there will be a whole lot going on in the background, like of life in general. But I just saw no point in crashing out. Like number one, school.
Yeah.
It's school. It's going to be what it's going to be. And I think a lot of people weaponize that unbotheredness and the ability to be unmoving to being antisocial and just not caring. To a point, I was like, no, like I think our life experiences are different, whereas grad school will be the center of the world for this person. But at the end of the day, I was just taught to be grateful, just for me personally, for just the day, like just the day and the ability to, make art in general. Now, I wanted to ask you about your process as being a costume designer, like working with a director and how you see a script. Like, how does that process happen when you read a script for the first time? And if a project really moves you, like what are the telltale signs of you working on a project from inception?
Are you saying how do I find my way into telling the story, or are you saying like what is the process between me and a director?
I would say, let's start with the first one first. How do you find your way into telling that story, or at least like empathize? Because some people are like, I remember it was taught to me of you really understanding different parts of a story, but how do you world build as a costume designer in your mind? How do you see the characters? How do you see the setting? How do you see all these specific things? Because we usually don't talk to our collaborators until later, if anything at all. And then how do you work with your director as, Ari, the person, as the artist, and then you're connecting with the director and you're world building with them?
That is a very good question. And I think you touched on something where you said something about understanding story.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think that is key, is to understand the different points of story, which is like exposition, conflict, rising action, climax, falling action. I think you need to understand the story arc. Which is a very Western way of telling stories, but that's sort of how our minds and our eyes are conditioned to view entertainment.
The Aristotle way of taking it.
Exactly. I think you need to understand that, but I also think you need to understand literature and how to craft a thesis statement. Like, I think so much of your design is based on what does this story mean? And how do I showcase that in images, visuals? I think that's the basis of my design process. Like oftentimes scripts have a lot of different themes and meanings, but I measure that against the zeitgeist. So what's going on in the world? And what is the most important lesson that the audience needs to learn right now? And how can I showcase that visually? I mean, a lot of times the director will have that. And sometimes you guys, your thinking and their thinking will match up. And sometimes directors will come in and they're very much about the acting process and like bringing things out of the actors, so they don't necessarily know to do that. But I think no matter what design philosophy you're coming out of, you need to understand how to, what is this thesis statement, how does it connect to the zeitgeist at the time, and how do I showcase that visual? So that's my process.
Okay. Thank you for that. I actually wanted to ask about your rendering style. So how has it changed from you being an undergrad to grad school to currently now? So how has that evolution happened? Like, do you do things based on paper, collages, Photoshop, Procreate, and also like finding, you can also start with research too. How do you research first and then go into your renderings? If you're doing a historical show, and we can add that as a question on top of that, how do you research with primary and secondary sources? Do you go to the library, or do you like do online searching? How do you do all that research starting from the get-go?
Um, I yes, of course, I go to the libraries, I research, and I do all
Mhm.
of that. But for me, I think I get the most inspiration through living life.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, you know, going to like experiencing life. So going to museums, going to different parts of the city, observing how people wear clothes, and you know, like what brands are popular, and then also how are people wearing the clothes, because I feel so much of clothing is a language,
Yes.
the communication.
Yes.
So that's sort of where I start. I also get a lot of inspiration just like going to nightclubs or going out dancing, or, you know, just really living life. I feel like a lot of, you know, coming from the art school way of doing something, it's like you have to be very isolated in a room reading a book and
Mm,
really understanding something, which is very important, but it's
yes.
also equally important if you want to move the conversation with design ahead. You have to interact with the zeitgeist. You have to interact with people
Yeah.
to create authentic characters. So my design process starts, you know, years, months, days in advance. Just by living life, and I'll take a picture and I'll, you know, put it in a folder on my in my camera roll. I have a bunch of like different Pinterest boards and like
Same.
folders where I'm collecting images, and it's stuff that you might not necessarily find in a book or in a traditional way of researching.
Yeah.
And then in terms of, what was the other question?
Rendering style,
Rendering style.
or
Okay.
even like, art style of rendering style, gouaches, acrylics. Do you do on like, watercolor paper, mixed media, sketches? Like there's so much to go with that. Um, but I just want to know exactly like how do you do your rendering? So how's it evolved? And also, like, I'm a painter. I like to paint sometimes on big canvases, but I like to paint just to relax. I used to hate painting.
I love
I did
that.
not like it. I was a sketcher because I didn't have a formal training. Like I didn't go to art school and like paint, but I literally taught myself how to paint some
I
things
love that. Yeah.
based off of like highlights and shadows and just playing around with it and not thinking too much of it. So I just wanted to get, your perspective on exactly how that has evolved for you over the years.
So I think that a lot of my style came really originated at DePaul.
Hmm.
I was really very much playing around with Photoshop and collage. I was very like, the intersection between art, design, and technology really fascinated me
Yeah.
back then, and I knew that we were going to end up where we are now in terms of art and technology, where everything is kind of done on the computer.
Yeah.
images, like you can really collage things together from images you find on the internet.
Yeah.
I mean, when I first discovered Photoshop, that's where my mind went. Like, that's the style that I wanted to do. So I developed that style at NYU, to the disappointment of my teachers there, because they came from this mentality where you have to draw and be very meticulous about drawing, which is very, very true. I
Yeah.
don't think that my drawings would be, or my renderings would be, as successful if I didn't have all these years of formal drawing and painting. Um, uh, yeah, because you have to understand proportion, you have to
Right.
understand composition, shadowing, all of those things, before you get to a point where you can use AI, where you can use Photoshop to collage things. So I think that that's very much my style right now. I'm very much fascinated by the intersection of design and technology. I also think it's an interesting conversation that we're going to have when we look back, from in the next couple of decades, to
Hmm.
see how technology is in influencing art,
Yeah.
um, and then, like, what is ownership of a particular photo. Like, I
Yeah.
know that we have, like, established rules, but I'm very much intrigued by that. Like, who owns an image, and the manipulation of that image is intriguing to me. Um,
It is very interesting that you're bringing up that conversation, is because as I'm literally, as I'm editing my syllabus right now, I have to put in particular, because I was shocked about AI and using AI. At first, I didn't really understand it. Like, I didn't really understand AI. My mother actually taught it to me. She's, at FAMU right now. Go Rattlers! But she's at FAMU doing her grad degree, and she told me all about, chat GBT and, like, open AI and all these other things. I'm like, who taught you this, and who, and it's become a huge thing with students, like, nowadays, which can be a good thing, but it's also a bad thing, because that's where plagiarism has an issue. Now, when it comes to art, though, I was just on a panel at Athos about this. When it comes to AI, and this is about stereotyping and the problems with stereotyping with AI. If you were to ask it one particular thing that might be, a woman in a skirt, it might show you one particular body image of a skirt until you add something in, or if someone's related to culture. Now, I asked this in particular. I think I asked it for. I'm probably pronouncing this wrong. It was like jodhpurs, that were like the pants, the
oh
riding
gosh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
pants. Yeah,
yeah.
with riding boots and a lace shirt. I thought it was going to produce something ugly, but it actually produced like a really good image of a woman, like a sketch. I asked for a fashion sketch for this, and it did produce it, and it wouldn't be a copyright infringement because they took different pieces and they added this image. I don't know how that's going to affect our industry in the next few years, because I think people might lose their skills. And I always tell my students, if you were to work with nothing, like if you have a pen and a pencil and like some $2 sketchbook from Hobby Lobby, oh, not even Hobby Lobby, no, let me cut that out. More from Dollar General, because I'm like, no, no, no. Like, how would you be able to produce that if you were given nothing?
Yeah, I agree with where you're coming from. Actually, I just did a round of sketches where I use AI
Mm.
to, like, create the avatars.
Is
Um,
it the one that's like on Photoshop, where you have like the little small little thing and you type it in?
no, so this program is called Fashion Look AI, and
Okay.
so it's still a little clunky. That's the reason why I don't think you can just completely use AI right now, because also I don't think you can use AI completely in the future, because the thing that gives your art piece soul is the experiences you've gone through. It's
Yeah.
the color combinations that you've interacted with.
Yeah.
It's like these little things that you cannot really hold on to that is your lived experiences. You know, I'm sure like there was some sort of like, I don't know, like I think about my grandmother had these drapes in her house, right?
Yeah.
And that later on became an inspiration for a dress costume that I did.
Yeah.
AI will never pick that up because
Yeah.
it's not living life. So I think if you are going to use technology, one, you have to understand foundations.
Right.
If not, then why are people choosing to hire you, and why do you have the authority to speak on your particular discipline? Like, you should be able to pick up any type of medium and use it, whether it be gouache, watercolor, charcoal, ink. You should be able to do that because you should consider yourself a master in the discipline. And I know that that's like a loaded word, but you should be able to walk 100% into whatever your discipline is. Like, you look at athletes, they don't just go out and play a game. They have training on the off season. They're like, I mean, I don't know very much about sports, but like they're dribbling the ball, they're running, they're doing athletic stuff before they step out onto the court. And as an artist, you need to also be doing that as well. You need to be training in like visual arts as well as sewing, because you're gonna have to step into a costume shop and sort of command presence and get people to buy in on your idea. So you need to understand how to properly make something. So I have a love-hate relationship with technology. Like, I think it's a tool and you need to be able to use it, but you should not completely rely on it.
Thank you for that. I wanted to ask you one final question because we're about to end our time soon. So I want to ask you one final question when it comes to all the other, artists that might be coming, especially Black women or younger Black women. What advice would you give to them joining this field if they might feel a little apprehensive about joining, or if they might not see as much representation? If they watch this podcast, what exactly would you want to say to them?
What would I want to say to them? Stop worrying about being accepted and just make art. And the right people will find you. Stop asking for approval. Stop waiting for your turn. Make art and show it. And the right people and the right place where you're supposed to be will emerge. I think that in my youth, I spent so much time worrying about people's approval, who, after a decade or 2 decades, they have no bearing on my life. They are not helping me. They're not hiring me. They're not helping me pay my rent. They're not a factor in my life at all. So what happens? How far would I have been? How far would I be right now if I would have drowned out that narrative in my head and just focused on making art and just showing it to people? So that's what I would say to a young artist. And all of this ideas on racism and all of that, like, yes, it definitely does exist.
It exists.
It exists, and it will, when you need to put a little bass in your voice, put a little bass in your voice. But you should not be fighting with the dark. You have to recognize who to fight with and who to just be like, get out of my face. Like, if it's a serious barrier for you getting to where you need to go, by all means, sometimes you need to not fight, but you need to assert yourself. But if it's just some, person who's just yapping because they feel like they should be in your position, I wouldn't even give them the energy to even correct them, because it's like, if you're right, then be right. But it seems like you're not right. So I'm going to keep on my journey. So that's the advice. And then also enjoy life. Like, I know a lot of people say, get into the library, really understand your craft, which you should be doing, but also go to the party. Go to the party.
I do too. I do too.
Go dancing, like, don't be afraid to talk to this person. Go live your life fully. Yeah, so that's what I would say to a young person. Like, live your life fully, because I remember just being an undergrad, there were so many of my peers who just wanted to be in the studio just making things, which is important, but it's also the life you're
Should be the
living is
whole thing.
equally, yeah, it's
Yeah,
equally as important.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Ari, for holding this conversation. And I hope that there's many, many different more conversations like this in our field,
Yeah.
especially these people,
Yeah.
especially like us.
Thank you
Um,
so much, Harry. I really enjoyed this conversation. I would love to talk to you more about Chicago.
yes, I would. I'm going to see you in Crown Heights now. We need to go out for coffee. That's crazy.